Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tackling a massive financial problem that is quietly eating away at the global construction industry: cost overruns. If you've ever been anywhere near a construction project, large or small, you know that sinking feeling when the budget starts to balloon. And suddenly, that quick 3-month job turns into a multi-year saga. But what if I told you that this isn't just bad luck? It's actually a deeply ingrained systemic issue. So in this explainer, we're going to diagnose exactly why these projects consistently bleed money, and more importantly, lay out a strategic treatment plan to fix it. Okay, let's dive into this. A recent report from KPMG reveals a pretty startling reality. See that tiny 31% slice? That represents the construction projects that actually managed to stay within a 10% deviation of their original budget. That means a staggering 69% of projects absolutely blew past that mark. Think about that for a second. Exceeding your budget isn't just an occasional hiccup anymore. It has firmly established itself as the unsettling industry norm. With all the heightened scrutiny and intense competition out there today, this is a massive failure rate that stakeholders literally cannot afford to ignore if they want to ensure sustained growth. Section 1. Cracks in the foundation.
So let's examine the symptoms. We can actually break down the 9 predominant causes of cost overruns into 3 highly digestible themes. On the left, under planning and scope, we have inaccurate estimates, the dreaded scope creep, and poor time management, where idling construction teams are just draining funds. In the middle, financial bottlenecks highlight the cash flow, client delays, contractor financing hurdles, and sudden price changes. And finally, on the right, management errors. This involves operating with zero risk management and suffering from poor communication among stakeholders. The reason we lay them out like this is to show you exactly how these errors compound. A bad estimate on the left leads directly to a financial bottleneck in the middle, which then gets completely exacerbated by poor communication on the right. It is a perfect storm for budget failure.
Let's zero in on one of the most dangerous traps in that first column: flawed project estimates. The pressure of competitive bidding often forces contractors to submit artificially low estimates just to win the job. But as this insight from Irvine Bookkeeping hits the nail on the head, miscalculations at the project's outset can lead to a domino effect, causing budgets to spiral completely out of control. When you lay a groundwork of totally unrealistic numbers, you aren't just making a tiny math mistake, you are quite literally programming cost overruns into the project from day one. Accurate, realistic estimates are absolutely crucial. Section 2. The domino effect. Let's move to the financial bottlenecks and see how this builds, step by step, into a total project disruption. It almost always starts at step 1. The client delays a progress payment. Might seem like a small administrative holdup, right? Well, look at step 2. The contractor, who is usually juggling multiple projects at once, suddenly faces severe cash flow and financing hurdles. Because their funds are frozen, we slam right into step 3. Payments to subcontractors and suppliers come to a dead stop. And when the people doing the physical work and supplying the materials don't get paid, they stop working. Resources dry up, timelines are shattered, and extending the project duration incurs massive additional expenses. It is a direct chain reaction. And while that internal chain reaction is blowing things up, you are also getting hit by external variables. Unforeseen price changes in materials and labor add heavy, unpredictable strain to an already fragile budget. When market conditions shift or availability drops, contractors are forced into rapid budget revisions. Sometimes, just to keep the project breathing, they have to compromise on overall quality or just accept massive delays. Look, you can't control the global market, for sure, but failing to account for its volatility practically guarantees an overrun. Then there is the silent killer: scope creeping. This is the expansion of a project's original scope way beyond the initial plan. It sounds harmless at first, doesn't it? Just one extra feature, maybe a slight alteration. But unchecked scope creep fundamentally compromises work quality. It strains your resources, confuses your timelines, and inevitably leads to severe cost overruns. Without proactive management, through clear communication, relentless documentation, and regular reviews, scope creep will absolutely eat your budget alive. Let's pivot from the problem to the solution here. If you operate with no risk management, you're basically inviting chaos, delays, safety hazards, disputes, and sudden unexpected costs. But through effective risk management, you gain total control. This means continuous assessment, mitigation planning, and having built-in contingency measures. The empowering takeaway here is this: predictable problems are preventable. By identifying and addressing potential risks early on, you actually secure the project's success. Section 3. Blueprint for budget control. The bedrock of this control is built on 3 strategic pillars. First up, Thorough planning. This is the cornerstone. You absolutely must identify potential risks early, allocate resources judiciously, and establish realistic budgets. No more artificially low competitive bids. Second, contingency planning. You have to carve out a specific portion of your budget strictly as a buffer. This allows your team to respond to unexpected events, like those sudden material price hikes, without jeopardizing the project's overall financial health. Third, supplier relationships. Build a solid network of reliable, cost-effective suppliers and negotiate contracts that provide stability in pricing and terms. This adds a massive layer of resilience to your project.
Section 4. Building financial resilience.
Okay, setting up a great plan is really only half the battle. The other half is execution. To protect your budget throughout the daily messy reality of a build, you need to follow this definitive checklist. So the crucial point is this: prioritize transparent communication. Everyone needs to understand the project dynamics and alterations to prevent disputes. Next, rigorous scope management. You need a strict change management process to vigorously evaluate any proposed changes and stop scope creep in its tracks. Then, efficient project management tools. Use these to optimize your workflows and keep everything running on schedule. And finally, continuous financial monitoring. You have to have a robust system to regularly track expenditures against the budget. Think of this as your early warning system, letting you take swift corrective action before a tiny issue snowballs into a financial disaster.
We've unpacked the devastating reality of cost overruns and the precise mechanisms you can use to fix them. But listen, all the continuous monitoring and contingency planning in the world literally won't save you if you don't respect your own boundaries. So I want to leave you with this to challenge your current operations. Look at your next build and ask yourself, is your project scope a strict blueprint that you adhere to, or is it just a suggestion? Your answer to that question will likely determine whether you end up in that successful 31% or just become another statistic. Thanks for joining me on this explainer.